Company Limited was created to manage the national integrated power products, principally to build power plants, sell, and then rebuild more. This was as a result of the wide gap between generation and demand at the time. However, after the plants were built, in spite of efforts made by government, they have not been able to sell those plants. Now, in the process of building those plants, they also realized that there is need to operate the plants, and to operate the plants, you need gas supply. So NDPC started to build gas receiving stations, and then pipelines to bring gas from the wells to the plants. And then they also realized that they needed to evacuate the power onto the national grid and to the consumers. And so they also were directed to start constructing transmission lines and substations, as well as distribution substations. So from building power plants, their scope increased to building transmission lines and substations, building distribution networks, just to make sure that all the gaps in the value chain are filled or are joined together. And that's where we are. Unfortunately, because of market situation, the plants have not been able to, the government has not been able to sell those plants. So the government has re-strategized to ask us to be operating the plant so that the original purpose of building the plants will not be defeated. And that's where we are. The transmission lines and substations that we build are transferred to the Transmission Company of Nigeria, who by the laws are authorized to cater for transmission exclusively. So they're the ones that are dealing with that. When we build those transmission lines and substations, we transfer to them. When we build injection substations and networks, we transfer to the discos that cover that area. That is as simple as that so far. But of course, the eligible customer declaration is now making it possible for GENCOs to look for customers and supply power directly to them. So in the not too distant future, you will see NDPC building its own transmission lines and distribution networks to be able to sell what it is producing. I think that's a very wise thing for the government to do.
Thank you very much, sir. What's your assessment on rural electrification in the areas within the jurisdiction of Niger Delta Power Holding Company, sir?
The Niger Delta Power Holding Company operates throughout the federation. Like I said to you, the company is owned by the federal government, which owns, I think, 47% of it. The states, the 36 states, plus the Federal Capital Territory, and the 774 local governments own the remaining 53%. So we work all over the places in terms of transmission, and the sole aim of NDPC is to be sure that all the gaps are closed.
So there's no point talking of rural electrification.
No.
As an individual thing.
No. What we do is that, subject to availability of funds, when there's an urgent need, to assist to build transmission or distribution networks, We are directed to do it, and we do it in record time.
Away from the broad-based issue of NDPHC, sir, you are an Ikale person. Do you think there's a case of class deprivation against Ikale land near Ondo Southern Central District from the Benin electricity distribution companies?
Well, I think there was a misunderstanding of the role of the distribution companies, and this was because, in my own view, they were not prepared for the work they engaged in. They didn't have the financial muscle to do what they were supposed to do. They didn't have the capacity to enumerate all the customers or potential customers in all of those areas. They didn't have the financial muscle and technical capacity to refurbish the lines they inherited. Look, it's like you buying a fairly used car that has no tires. If you have borrowed money from the bank to buy the car, it has no tire, it has no battery, and some of the seats are worn out, and you don't even have enough money or any additional money to buy new tires, to change the battery. That's what is happening to the discos, and to the best of my knowledge. So what they want to do is to maximize their opportunities. So they look at customers that are high net worth customers, and they want to concentrate on that. They do not have the capacity to go to the rural areas and to the suburban areas to enumerate them, provide intelligent meters for all of those places, and to ensure that if anybody tampers with those meters that will ensure that networks will rebuild the network, so that if anybody tampers with those meters, or if you tamper with the supply to your house, they can easily be detected. So that's what is happening. So they in order to maximize their opportunities, they concentrate on the urban areas where they are sure that there are high net worth customers who will want to pay for the electricity they consume. And that's what is happening all over the countries. So in the process, the Kale people were victims as well. And the history of people being resistant to paying bills, it also dates back to the NEPA days when arbitrary bills and what you call estimated billing was the order of the day. And when they bring these bills, I mean, if you feel cheated, you will also look for ways to gain advantage. Of course, because of corruption in the system and some of their staff at the time and even now, they do deals with them. So most customers are paying bills, but they are paying to the wrong people in those days, you know. And there were no enough punishment to deter people from pursuing that angle.
All right, sir. Now that the Ikale community has fallen victim of the impression that the distributing company do not really have the plan to, focus on areas that are not high net worth. The question is, how do the people of that area, Ikale land, in fact,
I'm not sure that Ikale area is not high net worth. I mean, look, like in all areas, there are high net worth customers there. And what happened was that the disco responsible for that area cut off the supply to the area for years, and the networks had depreciated. And like I said, they didn't have the financial muscle or the technical know-how to refurbish or to restore the lines or to repair the lines or rebuild the lines. I mean, if a transformer had been abandoned for 12 years or for 6 years, it's likely not going to be able to function. Some of the poles, the 33 kV transmission lines and the 11 kV lines had fallen. The poles were damaged. The cables had cut, so they didn't have the muscle, and that was what happened. And then, luckily, the federal government, through the Office of the Vice President, intervened and directed that NDPC should intervene. And luckily, I'm here, a citizen of Nigeria who happens to come from Ikale land, who is also a victim like every other person. So we have been able to restore and to rebuild most of the lines. Some of the projects are still ongoing. And it's not the Ikale people alone, it's Ikale, Ilaje, the entire southern central district of Ondo State, consisting of 6 local governments. So it was a disaster. So, I mean, look at Chicken George and all of those, very important places, so that they can quickly, and then the people will be aware, the citizens will be aware that power has been restored, and then
so individual houses in the major areas of the town is going to be gradual on the basis of their ability to show willingness to.
Well, supply is not to an area, and that's one of the points I made to Benin Disco at the time. You don't cut the supply to an entire area. It's a customer by customer thing, So you cannot go to an area and disconnect the power supply to an entire area. Now, with the regulation in place, I'm sure that will not happen again. And of course, that's also a matter for NEC to deal with, because NEC has not been responsive enough. A situation where, National Electricity Regulation Council, Commission. Discos have no power to go to an area and just disconnect the entire power supply to an area. They don't have, nobody has it. You can't go to an estate, for instance, and disconnect power to the entire estate just because 9 out of 15 people have not paid. This is why it is important to have intelligent meters in place. You cannot disconnect a customer that is up to date. There's a need for NEC to put its feet down and do what they're supposed to do. That's their responsibility.
Thank you very much, sir. So what is your assessment of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration so far?
There's no doubt in my mind that this is one of the best administrations we've had so far. Look at the area of corruption. Corruption is now an issue that everybody is aware of. And yes, we have not gotten to where we're supposed to be going. But for the first time in the history of this country, former governors are being jailed. Look at the judiciary is now up to its responsibility. The judiciary had declared illegal the award of hundreds of millions of naira and to build houses for governors as pension and all of those things. When the executive is not corrupt, the other arms of government have the boldness to do what is right. And that's what happened. That's what we have seen. Look at governors who people thought that they came to seek umbrage, to seek shelter in the All Progressives Congress, to hide so that they can escape prosecution. All of them are in jail, and I'm sure that many more will go to jail. So, in the area of fighting corruption, no matter what you say, now nobody can accuse this government of partiality in fighting corruption. Nobody anymore, because all of these people are APC stalwarts. Yes, we know they committed the offense while they were in PDP. But nobody will come to APC now and think that because he has come into APC, he cannot be prosecuted for sins he had committed before. Now, in the area of fighting insurgency, in spite of the heckling of the opposition in the past, you can see that we are witnessing peace in virtually all parts of the country now. In Zamfara, where the murder of citizens was a daily event, all of that has stopped. The Boko Haram insurgency is almost a thing of the past. Kidnapping is even disappearing now. In the past, it was a daily affair. Mass kidnapping of people and ambition can be a very negative thing. But I assure you, I'm very concerned about the state of my state. I'm concerned about development in my states. I'm concerned about the state of sports development in my state. Today, we cannot boast of 1, 2, 3 single sportsman or sportsmen of national repute. And that's because there's no sporting program to spot talents and to hone their ability and their skills to be able to come out. In Ondo State, not one, 43 years after the creation of Ondo State. And I tell you, it's not rocket science. We cannot produce a swimming star from the entire riverine area of Ondo State. Footballers in Ondo State. We cannot produce basketball players in Ondo State. We no longer have sprinters and athletes in Ondo State. I'm worried. I'm worried about the state of the roads in Ondo State. I'm troubled that in Okijukwa, for instance, students have to travel miles to be able to sit for JAMB because there are no JAMB compliant centers in those areas. I need you to tell me how many industries are functioning in Ondo State today, except those ones that have been given to, except the ones that Chinese people are bringing there now. Where is the glass factory? What has happened to cassava? What has happened to cashew? What has happened to cocoa? What has happened to rubber? What has happened to banana? Where is the glass factory? Where is the oil palm produce center? Where is Nairobi? Where is the phone ceramic industry? And so on and so forth. So it's not about, we need a government that can sit down and tackle these issues seriously. I don't know what we're doing to train people as artisans. Now in the Southern Senatorial District, where we have no power supply for 12 years, I don't know how it is possible for people to be gainfully employed as artisans, as welders, as barbers, as hairdressers, as tailors, and so on and so forth. We have a problem. So when we're talking about 2020, I think we should be talking about what is required to bring Ondo State to the level that other states are now at. Even look at, we're the only state in the Southwest that does not have a governor's office. We don't have a governor's office that we can be proud of. We don't have a governor's residence. We don't have a banquet hall. The dome that we have there is not a standard banquet hall. There is a need for us to examine the state of our state and know and come together as a people. Even the state of our party. I don't know when last party meetings are held across the local governments. I know that it's only in Okijukwa local government that we have monthly meetings of the All Progressive Congress. Even party politics is dead in Ondo State. So this should concern everybody. All of us should be concerned. There should be holy anger in all of us to change things around, to turn things around. We must prepare for the future. We must plan. We must prepare our children for a future. The world has changed completely, and unless we take serious measures now, we'll be in trouble.